I had heard that there was this exploit. It was originally created kind of as a proof of concept. It turned into an exploit where a web browser would be using JavaScript to spin its wheels and do cryptocurrency mining. And that was profiting the creator of that exploit. And I thought to myself, that's amazing. That's actually not something that web browsers should create a solution for, not directly. I think that this reveals great potential because it would be a way for me as a user to support a website that I'm viewing without having to be bothered by advertising. Because websites, they support themselves, they pay for their hosting fees, etc., by selling out to advertisers. They they post visuals, they take up space, they distract. And a lot of people will have an ad blocker. It's now cooked into some web browsers. Variations of it already cooked in terms of like the mothering functionality that says, "Oh, that's a scam. You don't want to see that content." But some people specifically have classes of advertisement blocked out by other mechanisms. And it occurs to me that ad blocking is something that, well, I personally don't agree with ads at all, but I would actually be willing to spend CPU cycles doing the math for a website to give it whatever pennies I can generate by doing cryptocurrency mining. And if it's just as easy as I visit the website and it happens, I'd approve of that. I'd do that. I would turn that on by default, even if that functionality were built in to my web browser in a sensible way. And it can be at the web browser level. The problem with web browsers is they're basically an operating system, and JavaScript is grown out of hand. But we can leverage all of these things. So the idea would go as follows. I visit a website. That website announces itself to my web browser as having cryptocurrency functionality. And that tab begins mining. Now the web browser is capable of controlling JavaScript, which is capable of controlling the mining. So we have like an official cryptocurrency mining functionality thing cooked into JavaScript that the website is communicating with. Pardon me, the request from the website goes. And because the web browser is capable of managing that, you can also manage how much of the CPU gets used. So for example, it can intelligently do things like if your web browser is in the background, like you're doing something else right now and your web browser is not visible, then it can have reduced CPU priority. So it's not doing much. So that if you were off working with some really complex other stuff and that other program needed the snappy CPU response time, it would have it. That kind of stuff it's not special. That queuing, that priority, that's been a thing in software since multitasking, really. And you can have that, and then you can leverage the idea of doing that per tab, so that if I'm looking at one website, the previous website that might be also requesting cryptocurrency mining would still be doing it, but at a lower priority. And again, with another tab and another tab and another tab. So I've got all these things that I could tweak that would say that my current use, my current tab is always nice and peppy, nice and fast, and all of my other tabs can vie for attention for X number of units of cryptocurrency mining. And that can be based on time, or that can be based on some other stuff. Basically, there's a way for the browser to dictate how much CPU time can be given as a reward to that website. So it could be something like the length of time I stay on that tab. It could be the length of time I've had it open at all. Like for this mining queue can exist, and things can be put into it without the tab necessarily being open. Like it was viewed for 15 minutes. I was reading an article, and it's doing some mining right there in the foreground as I'm working on it. Then I close that tab I do other things. That request to mine can still be present. If there's no other websites that I've been visiting lately, nothing else has been determined to be deserving, it can continue mining that for, a lot of people will say, for forever. It doesn't really matter. Just as long as my computer is really nice and peppy. So it could queue it, it could make it low priority, but it could mine for 2 cents worth of mining, whatever that happens to mean for the currency of the day. Or it could be X number of time, or it could be X number of units of calculation. So oh god, it's been too long. However many flops, I can't remember the term now. So it could be a certain number of CPU cycles. Something like this can be done. And just like if a person were to download, say they're downloading open source software and they're using torrenting, which a person should do, and they leave it in the seeding state, which means that after they've downloaded something, they're participating in a network, and they're sharing the thing back out. They're uploading it to other people that are interested in that same program. So for example, I just downloaded OpenShot to do video editing, and it has a feature for me to download it as a torrent, and I can sit here and I can feel good by letting my computer stay on overnight. I built this computer to be completely silent. I literally can't tell when it's turned on, and I could leave it on overnight and for days, for all it matters to me, and I am sharing that my upload bandwidth. So as long as my internet connection doesn't really cost me anything extra for doing it, as long as my electric bill doesn't cost me extra for it, and again, in order to have a low, I could talk about it, but in order to have a low sound, like in order to have a silent computer, it kind of has to be low power and low heat, so that has less need for fans, stuff like this. So it ends up being quite low power as well. And for people that have like a fanless laptop or something like that that's designed for it, there's all kinds of choices where I would be able to leave my computer on overnight and share my bandwidth. And I wake up in the morning and I feel good. Like I've helped other people download this program that I like. Awesome. And I can see people with that same kind of mindset with, I left my browser running cryptocurrency mining on behalf of these websites that I've been visiting. I visited these news websites, and I visited these entertainment websites, anything like that. And I let my computer go, magic happens, and maybe I guess some statistics as a kind of a little bit of a dopamine hit, a reward, a thank you from these websites. Maybe there are top 10s. You can do all kinds of stuff like that. That used to be the thing with, what's the term? Like SETI at home and some code folding, protein folding projects where they were offloading the mathematics of doing certain kinds of significant number crunching. There were these projects where you would download a client specific for doing number crunching on your home computer and participating in a shared effort to analyze a lot of data. The equivalent can happen just with cryptocurrency mining, and that turning into money that goes to the websites that you visited. So I think it's actually a very interesting idea for me that the functionality could exist again, could be done right, and could replace the use of visual advertising for a website to generate revenue. And it would be, were it implemented properly, were it openly accepted by the web browsers, it can be totally out of the hand and invisible to users for all it really matters to them. You have a checkbox that talks about this. You like let people know, like, would you like to opt out of visual advertisers wherever possible in exchange for this? You won't notice anything happening. If you minimize your browser window, it will stop stuff. If it sees that something else intensive is going on, it'll just turn itself off. Like if you're doing video production or something like that, or you're playing a video game and it sees a spike of CPU usage from that thing, your web browser will go, oh, whoa, I shouldn't be doing this, and it'll just calm down. So you won't see. You can do it while gaming. You can. I mean, if all that stuff was taken care of, and it can be taken care of, a lot of people would say, yeah, I don't ever want to see an ad again. Now, that becomes interesting because it means that the websites which choose to still use visual advertising are doing it and will have the opportunity to make more money. So there's a bit of an arms race there, where some websites will still want to be the branding face of certain advertisers. And there's always going to be circumstances where that money will now be freed up because visual advertisers will lose business with a lot of these little websites. But that means that they will have more funding that they can commit to, frankly, more effective advertising, which is in, well, native advertising, but in, say, promoting video producers or something like that, actually having embedded ads in there, either automatically or cooked into the actual video itself, sponsoring. And so I think that is a more effective way for those people to be spending their money anyway. So I think that they end up winning, and I think the websites end up winning because the ones that make choices that say, okay, well, our audience is never going to respond to the advertisers. We make almost no money. We switch over to this other model. Our users are of the type where, we tell them about it and we promote it, and all of our users maybe philosophically will be totally on board. There are websites which will actually easily make more money doing this than with just regular advertising. So I think it would be healthy for them to pursue that kind of thing. I think for one, so for example, the people that would drive this, the open source software community, I should say free and open source software community, who would be creating all these engines, would all be on board, because I don't think that many of them view visual advertising as good. And I think the idea of the cooperative number crunching and being able to make money off of that I think that would be philosophically compatible with the way they think. So yeah, I think web browsers could be a tool for a website to make money for itself, as long as the browser was in on it and the user was okay with it, and this new kind of technology was actually used. I think cryptocurrency mining represents an exceptional possibility that should be pursued.